Hi, my name is Adele and I'm a licensed therapist. If you're new to my channel, I talk about limerence, codependency, and relationship issues. But today we are going to shift gears and talk about this particular case of the OnlyFans creator, Lily Phillips. This wasn't a video that I was planning to talk about, but it just kept popping up on my feed and I felt compelled to talk about it as it relates to relationship issues and our society at large when it comes to intimacy. Initially, I tried to separate my feelings from this analysis, but I think that my reaction and your reaction is really valuable information when we're watching anything this graphic. And I'll get to that part when we talk about trauma and dissociation. All that to say that this is going to be biased, obviously, because I have personal feelings about it. This isn't a video of me trying to convince you to have sympathy for her or to even add hatred, but I am going to invite you to check in with yourself. What reactions am I having? What questions do I have? For me, I made this video so that I can try to wrap my mind around something this disturbing from a psychological lens. Hopefully it could spark a discussion about the state of our mental health and also what we normalize in society. I don't know her personally, I'm not treating her, so all of this is just my own interpretations of what is happening. If you have a history of SA or any trauma that could be triggered by watching this, I would recommend you skip this video. Again, I emphasize the importance of checking in with yourself and making sure that as we continue as a humanity to evolve alongside our technology, we stay in connection with our reactions because we do not want to be desensitized to something like this. So we are going to start with the first clip of the introduction. This documentary was shot by Josh Peters, producer from the UK.
I'm Lily Phillips and today I'm getting run through by 100 guys.
So that's the opening video. A little background is that she's a 23-year-old OnlyFans creator from the UK who is on a mission to document her experience of sleeping with 100 men in one day. To pull off this stunt, she would need 5 minutes per man. They did the math for us. I keep air quoting because there's going to be a lot of language that you watch in this documentary that detracts from the unsettling aspects. The way that we talk about things shapes our reality. The next clip is the first video that I watched and one that was circulating around the internet, which compelled me to talk about the trauma of this experience.
You know, like when we're getting on a bit, I've got like a routine of like how we're gonna do this, and like it just sometimes you'd like disassociate and be like, you know, like it's not like normal sex at all. In my head right now, I can think of like 5, 6 guys, 10 guys that I remember, and that's it.
She uses the term dissociate often when talking about her experience with having sex with multiple guys. We will talk more about dissociation in the trauma portion of this analysis. I broke this particular video into 3 parts. We're going to start with analyzing the person using the theory of planned behavior to answer the question of what would motivate a person to do this. And then we're going to look at her support system, her family, her team, and think about the developing brain, the prefrontal cortex, and the relationships that reflect and influence our sense of worthiness. This answers the question that a lot of people had, which is, where are her parents? What do they feel about this? And then we're going to take it on an even broader level and talk about the society at large that has the power to influence the normalization of such a stunt. We're going to talk about the cultural shifts, the effects of social media, and answer the question of how did we get here? And then last, I'm going to talk about the aftermath, the trauma, dissociation, the cognitive dissonance, and maybe speculate what the future holds. Starting with analyzing Lily. I don't treat her, I don't know her. This is just my analysis, but we are going to look at it from the theory of planned behavior. The theory of planned behavior is simple. It's a way to explain why people do what they do. And like all theories on behavior, it's limited, right? This is only one lens to look at it through. So there are going to be other contributing factors to why someone does something. A lot of people already know that we aren't rational creatures. So then it's like, are we emotional creatures then? Do we make decisions based on our emotions? Theory of planned behavior says that we make our decisions based on three things: our attitude, what others think, and our sense of control. So if someone has a positive attitude, or if they think other people support them and they feel capable of doing it, this impacts their intention and the likelihood that they're going to follow through on that behavior. So we're going to look at some clips that break down her attitude, what others think, and her sense of control. When we think about the attitude of a person, it's really asking, do they think it's a good or bad idea? Here is what she thinks about this.
Being at university, like I was just sleeping around with everyone.
But I feel like I know of a lot of girls who have done that at university but then haven't gone on to become OnlyFans stars.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I just was like already very, not proud, like very just okay.
So you can see that she's very okay with having sex for money. When we consider the college environment that she's describing, it is a pretty normal thing in college to be a broke college student, and also for hedonistic behaviors to be normalized as well. But the interviewer does point out that even though a lot of people do OnlyFans in college, it doesn't mean that everyone goes on to pull a stunt like this. So let's look at how other people think about it. When we look at this particular aspect, we are thinking about, do important people in their life approve or disapprove?
I've only ever felt empowered by the fact that I'm making money off something that I think guys will do anyway. Like, guys are always going to sexualize me, so I may as well try and profit off that bit.
Again, her attitude towards it is that she can make money off of this. It's gonna happen anyway. She will be sexualized, so she might as well leverage it. And so far in this documentary, we learn that she has the overwhelming support of her friends and her family. And lastly, in the theory of planned behavior, we look at this person's sense of control. We know that this is consensual. This is something that she wanted. The question is, do they think it's something they can actually do, or is it too hard? Throughout the documentary, she persuades the audience that this is her fantasy and that she is in full control. She emphasizes that she loves sexual freedom and she feels embodied by this pursuit. And she actually isn't alone in thinking this. Many OnlyFans creators are in this particular line of work because they are able to pay their bills, they're able to make a living. Only in today's society can we be able to do something of this caliber. To witness something like this is only possible because of today's technology like OnlyFans. These older women, when told about this experiment, felt the same bewilderment that many folks did.
Does she find them on the internet?
Yes, so you can apply if you're a subscriber of her OnlyFans, so up to 100 people, and then the whole 100 of them get to have so they're one at a time on the 19th of October in London.
Oh, and it's on television?
It's going to be on her OnlyFans.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So when we're trying to understand someone, we want to look beyond just that person. We want to think about the bigger picture here, like their family and society that they live in and how that influences them. So a big question that I had, that a lot of people had as we move into analyzing her social network, is what about her parents? You know, what do they think about this? Well, the sad thing is that we learn that her parents are a part of her team. They are on payroll, essentially, and she has a 9-person team of people helping her create this content. So she doesn't act alone, and in that way, she is supported by her team. Josh Peters goes on to reframe the way that he describes her parents as forward-thinking and open-minded, which is only one way to describe it. They also talk about how her parents were somewhat apprehensive to this whole ordeal, but they wanted to give her freedom to pursue her passion. Her mom's main concern was her difficulty in finding a boyfriend. Never did they mention the concern for her physical, mental, and emotional well-being. Here's another clip on Lily describing why she wanted to do this.
Well, my parents knew straight from the start, like, about what I was doing. Yeah, I was just very open with it. Obviously, at the start, they were a bit apprehensive because they want me to be safe and
Yeah.
they want me to make good decisions and stuff like that. I just think I can't hold myself back and do something that I'm scared what other people might think.
Well, that's the thing. You're supposed to care what other people think to some extent. That's what parents teach us, which is to experience an appropriate amount of guilt and shame. So we know the difference between right and wrong. And part of maturity is practicing that impulse control. We see this even in the marshmallow test with children. They get an even bigger prize if they are willing to control their impulse of eating that marshmallow when they're left alone. And just because a kid loves candy so much doesn't mean that a parent should allow them to have that for every meal just because they love it. Some people are like, she's a grown adult and she's 23 and she is legally recognized as an adult, so her parents are not responsible for her, which is true. But what people forget is that our brain continues to develop late into our 20s, which means that the prefrontal cortex, which is the last to develop, isn't fully online. This means that the part of her that is capable of making good decisions and prioritizing and planning is not fully there. If you're in your 30s or older, I want you to think about yourself when you were 23. You probably didn't do something as outlandish as this whole thing, but I'm only suggesting that you are a very different person than when you were 23. Your values might be similar to now, but I think most people would agree that they are not the same person and they don't have the same belief system as they did from when they were younger. Everybody lives with regret, and unfortunately, not everyone experiences them so publicly. I'm not putting the blame on her parents. I am saying that the responsibility does fall on her. But I think it's always important to consider the large factor here about one's attitude towards any decision is that we have a support system that either supports us or exploits us. And if our brains continue to develop late into our 20s, we need people around us that help us recognize that our freedom comes with consequences. So this is her team talking outside of the Airbnb that they rented during this experiment. And this flip is perhaps one of the most disturbing to me.
Done. We're nearly done. We've got a few people who have like gone home and then they've called us and like, can my friend come? I've just told him how sick it was. And we're like, yeah, bring it. Like, send your friend over. But no, it's been great for like networking. Like even like guys have been speaking. They're like, oh yeah, I do this for a living, saying their jobs. Oh, we need someone that does that. And we're like, yeah, message us back tomorrow. It's been fun. I've really enjoyed it.
They're kind of chatting like this is a casual thing. Again, just talking about this experience as though it were normal. That's the part that is very horrific because she's in there exploiting herself as they're networking, and none of them even felt confident enough in their decision to show their face in this documentary. Someone could argue that they were preparing the logistics for her. You know, they have people sign up and they have an STI check. Lily herself didn't even know how people get HIV, which is very telling about the protecting and the safety that her support group shows. So we're going to move on now and we're going to talk about a comment that a lot of people express on her Instagram that I thought was very interesting and sparked my thoughts about worth. They said things like, she's so beautiful. She doesn't need to sleep with 100 men. How can she not see her worth? Well, I don't think it's about not seeing her worth. I think it's where she places her worth. She gets to beat a record. That is her aim. It's about where young women in today's modern society place their worth. In fact, in the first 5 minutes of watching this documentary, you will hear her joke that I'm only good for one thing, honestly. But is it really a joke? There are so many young women who believe that their sexuality is the most appealing and most powerful aspect to their identity. But the distortion comes from this notion that what grants somebody worthiness isn't just to be seen, but is to be seen by strangers, by people that don't even know them. Not just to be seen and validated by people online, but to also have money and influence. The sexual revolution aimed to create an openness and less stigma around the view of sex actually was grossly misconstrued. In the case like Lily Phillips, we're examining the connection between shame and narcissism, which can provide us a deeper insight on the psychological and social forces driving this behavior. We live in a society today where being famous is the same thing as being loved, and success means being extremely rich. And if you're on OnlyFans, you have to do a lot more to be seen and recognized. You have to do something even more intense, and the stakes keep going higher and higher. They do talk about that in this documentary. What it takes to be noticed is becoming more and more outrageous. So I want to zoom out even further and talk about shame and our society. A lot of people have comments in the video about how she chose this, so I don't feel bad for her. And it's true, she did choose it. What I think is very off isn't that you don't feel bad for her, but rather that she doesn't feel bad for herself. She doesn't feel shame. Contrary to popular belief, we are supposed to experience shame. There is such a thing called toxic shame that is linked to other mental health issues, but that's the same with toxic anger. That's linked to cardiovascular issues. There are toxic ways of experiencing emotions, but emotions aren't inherently bad. They are just information. So if we don't experience shame, we lose our ability to know right from wrong. It was really frustrating for me to watch how little shame she expressed in her actions. Shame is completely appropriate in this case. It's a natural way for her to recognize if she's done something wrong or hurtful to herself or to others. Shame can actually be helpful because it pushes us to take responsibility for our actions and to do better, to not repeat mistakes. But rather than just worrying about not being judged by others, and we see that that's her main concern, is the judgment of others over her moral integrity. And because of her lack of capacity to feel shame, she promises her fans that she's gonna sleep with 1,000 more men. So we're gonna go into the aftermath, the trauma of this. So we're gonna get to the end of the documentary, and to me, this is perhaps one of the saddest clips.
I guess when you've promised something to people who support you, it's kind of hard to let them down.
But it's up to you, right? Like when you know.
Yeah.
Have you even processed, do you think, what's happened?
Not yet. God, I won't forget this day, Jesus.
What's sad to me is that she's more concerned with letting other people down, letting her fans down. There's a major disconnect in that because I don't think that's what her breakdown is about at all. There's several times throughout this experience that she describes feeling dissociated, saying it was a blur, and she's using that term accurately. Dissociation is a natural response to trauma. Our mind disconnects from painful or distressing experiences in order to protect us. It's one of the most sophisticated survival mechanisms built into our nervous system. In Lily Phillips' case, even though she doesn't label this as traumatic, it's apparent that her body is reacting to it. This indicates that the nervous system felt overwhelmed and unsafe, even if she's not conscious of it. Over time, our unresolved traumas and dissociations can actually take a toll. It wouldn't be surprising if down the road she experienced PTSD or other stress-related issues. Throughout the end of this documentary, she has several breakdowns, which really highlights how the body holds in all that trauma, even when the mind isn't fully aware of it. So some of my closing thoughts. I want to end it with this clip.
It depends obviously on the request, but stuff like that I probably won't do. I don't want to encourage it. That for me, I don't think that's doing helping
What if someone
society.
offered you $1 million to do it?
I probably would bend my morals for that, yeah.
This is everything that we talked about, bending your morals in the name of fame, money, success. While it might not have been her intention to create a negative ripple effect, her self-exploitation contributes to a broader cultural shift where privacy is less valued and intimacy becomes less meaningful. I believe that by doing this, she was unconsciously seeking validation or a sense of significance. which is really just a reflection of our culture of narcissism, a culture that appears shameless on the surface, but is actually collectively, unconsciously shameful and attempting to mask that through self-expression. As a therapist, I do value sharing our experiences through technology because it helps us feel connected. However, when so much of our lives are exposed and so many people are dying to be seen, willing to expose themselves, we risk losing the depth and meaning that privacy and ordinary shame once provided. It's obvious that society continues to struggle with connection and recognition, and it's at the cost of preserving our essential personal and collective integrity. Hopefully, this can teach us all a lesson about why it's so important valuing our privacy, understanding what true intimacy is, and the importance of shame.
Like it feels intense.
Like more intense than you thought it might.
Definitely.
Sorry.
Sorry.
It's okay. No, it's okay. Just take
Yeah, 1 minute.
Yeah,